From overnight, tensions yet again escalating in the Middle East after a few quiet days, one could argue. President Trump following through in his threats to hit back on Iran, unleashing a wave of heavy strikes in response to attacks on American forces in the region. Rebecca Heinrichs, Hudson Institute Senior Fellow. And Rebecca, welcome back to our program here. I want to get your commentary on what's happened over the past 12 hours and your commentary on this Wall Street Journal. The U.S. commander with a 2-week plan to escalate strikes in Iran. It reads that Trump could greenlight Cooper's, head of CENTCOM, option to 10 to 14 days of intensive airstrikes intended to cripple Iran's missile capability, despite warnings that the U.S. is running low on air defensive munitions. Or he could opt for a more limited military strikes in the hopes that diplomacy could be pursued. It's option one or it's option two. What's your best guess?
Well, both obviously carry risks. I think that option one is going to give us the most likely positive outcome for the United States. And Admiral Cooper has had this list of targets now for a while. These targets would include, obviously, IRGC command centers. And we actually saw the United States hit some of those actually last night. But I think what he's talking about here is increasing the number of targets, increasing the tempo of strikes. One thing about the munitions, although I am very sensitive to this concern about getting low on munitions, the kinds of munitions we're actually lower on are the more exquisite, longer-range strike systems that we used in the beginning of the war to take out those air defenses. We've largely accomplished that. Now we have the shorter-range munitions, and they're far more plentiful. Not to say we shouldn't be concerned about it, but I think it's not as much of a concern as I think people are making. We've got enough weapons for this particular military campaign.
That's an interesting take. I don't think a lot of people have had that take. Appreciate you sharing that. We'll see what gives. Meanwhile, Oval Office, Jackie Heinrich with the question to the Commander-in-Chief. Watch.
Thank you. Appreciate that. President Xi told you that China would not give or sell Iran any weapons. And there's a new report that Iran's about to get 400 rocket launchers from China going through Pakistan to Iran.
Well, that would be surprising. I mean, things like that happen, but that would be surprising. He told me very strongly he wouldn't partake. And he knows I'd be quite disappointed. Yeah, please. And he's coming here, I think, on September 24th.
Oh, if this happens, that would be a major issue for the U.S., especially with our airplanes trying to fly through those areas. Will this happen, do you believe? Will Xi make this move?
Well, it would be a disaster, frankly. I mean, what Xi Jinping has essentially been providing diplomatic, basically support for the Iranian operation. The Chinese, of course, have backed the Iranians in the past with component parts and weapons. But during the heat of this war right now, this would be a major escalation on the part of the Chinese to get engaged in this. If we do have any indication that the Chinese are doing this, I think it's appropriate for the president to attribute this and name and shame what the Chinese are doing, because these wars in these different geographic areas are increasingly converging, Bill. We saw that the Russians, of course, were shipping some component parts and weapons to the Iranians as well, and the Ukrainians took out that ship. These areas are converging, and the United States has to have a plan for how to deal with this.
Just to point on that, the president has not yet signed off on the additional military hardware to Taiwan. It's upwards of $10 billion. Is this potentially a game of chicken between these two leaders?
Yes, I think obviously Xi Jinping does not want to see the United States delivering these weapon sales. But of course, my argument, my assessment is the United States should get these weapons to Taiwan, because that's going to deter Xi Jinping from thinking he can act aggressively against Taiwan. If the United States is going to be restrained by not delivering these weapons, we would expect the Chinese obviously not to be helping the country that we are in a war with right now, which is Iran.
That's right. A war that is underway, or conflict, however you characterize it. In Taiwan, there is no war today. Let's hope it stays that way. Rebecca, good to have you on. Thanks for coming back. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.